In the glamorous world of Hollywood, where bright lights, red carpets, and perfect smiles dominate the surface, there is always more happening behind the scenes than the public can imagine. The story of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni started as a collaboration that promised creativity, success, and inspiration, but quickly turned into one of the most talked about legal battles in recent entertainment history. The case, now spiraling into complex legal accusations, has taken a dramatic turn with Blake Lively's lawyers accusing Justin Baldoni of orchestrating a media spectacle that has threatened the integrity of the courtroom and the dignity of those involved. To understand the seriousness of these claims, we must first look at how this situation began. The connection between Blake and Justin goes back to their work on a high-profile film adaptation, a project that drew massive attention from fans and industry insiders alike. Blake, known for her charm and poise, and Justin admired for his heartfelt storytelling, seemed like the perfect pairing for a romantic drama that many hoped would become a cinematic masterpiece. Yet beneath the surface, tensions began to rise during the early phases of production. Allegations from Blake Lively emerged months later, revealing a troubling pattern of inappropriate behavior, harassment, and toxic dynamics on set. What started as whispers behind closed doors soon became a public legal battle that drew reactions from fans, celebrities, and commentators across social media platforms. With the public divided and speculation growing, both sides took their battle to court, where things only became more heated as the legal process unfolded. Depositions were scheduled, motions were filed, and statements were released by both legal teams. Each step was closely followed by media outlets and fans alike. But what really stirred controversy was the way certain details were leaked to the press well before they were ever meant to be shared with the public. That is when Blake Lively's lawyers stepped in to raise a powerful accusation. According to their official filing, Justin Baldoni and his legal representatives deliberately orchestrated what they called a media spectacle surrounding the deposition of Blake Lively. They claimed that carefully timed leaks were made to stir public attention, embarrass Lively, and create a false narrative that benefited Baldoni's public image. This, they argued, was not only unethical but harmful to the legal process, which is meant to be protected from such distractions and manipulation. The claim was not made lightly, and it came with documented examples that Blake Lively's team said pointed directly to coordinated efforts. They argued that details such as the clothing Blake wore to her deposition, the people she arrived with, and even internal court decisions were mysteriously appearing in entertainment headlines almost in real time. These pieces of information were never meant for the public, yet somehow journalists were reporting them with surprising accuracy and speed. Fans began to speculate online, wondering who was behind the leaks. Some believed that Baldoni's team had more to gain from the publicity, while others felt the entire situation was being exploited by outside parties for clicks, views, and headlines. No matter the source, the damage was done. Blake Lively's deposition had become more than a legal event. It had become a trending topic on every major platform, from Twitter to TikTok, from Instagram to YouTube. Blake Lively herself did not speak publicly about the deposition, but her lawyers made it clear that the leaks were deeply upsetting. They emphasized that Blake had hoped for a fair, private, and respectful legal process, and that these media spectacles not only invaded her privacy, but threatened the integrity of the entire case. In their view, the courtroom had become a stage, and their client had been cast in a role she never agreed to play. Legal experts began to weigh in on the situation. Some noted that while media attention is common in celebrity cases, deliberate leaks, especially those that violate protective orders, can lead to sanctions, fines, or even dismissal of claims if proven to be part of a strategy to manipulate public opinion. Blake Lively's legal team pointed to a pattern and suggested that the timing and content of the leaks were no coincidence, but part of a larger plan designed to damage her credibility while painting Baldoni as the victim. This new chapter in the case has raised serious questions, not just about the individuals involved, but about the role media plays in high-profile legal battles. Can justice truly be served when headlines influence public perception before a verdict is ever reached? Can privacy be protected when every detail becomes a trending topic? And most importantly, who benefits when a courtroom becomes a press room? We will look closer at the specific evidence presented by Blake Lively's legal team and how this alleged media manipulation is influencing the course of the trial. The battle is no longer just about what happened on set. It is now about truth, privacy, and control in a world where everything can be shared with the click of a button. As the public continued to react to the headlines surrounding the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni legal case, more pieces of the puzzle started coming into view. What had first seemed like coincidental leaks soon appeared to follow a pattern that Blake Lively's lawyers said was far too precise to be accidental. The legal motion submitted by Blake Lively's team painted a detailed picture of how the media was being used as a tool in what they called a strategic publicity campaign. They outlined several specific instances where confidential information had somehow ended up in the hands of entertainment outlets just hours or even minutes after being discussed behind closed doors. One major example was the early release of details about the location and setting of the deposition itself. The court had approved a protective order to ensure privacy and safety for both parties, but within hours of the decision, reports began circulating that Blake Lively would be deposed at a high-security location chosen by her lawyers. This information was supposed to remain sealed, yet it became headline news across multiple platforms. In addition to that, paparazzi were already waiting at the location before Blake Lively had even arrived, capturing images and videos that were then shared online with sensational titles suggesting tension, drama, and confrontation. Blake was shown entering the building surrounded by security and legal advisors, while the press reported on everything from her expression to the style of her clothing. Blake Lively's legal team argued that this kind of exposure was not just invasive, but designed to manipulate how the public perceived her. They claimed that by releasing images that made her look anxious, tired, or overwhelmed, Baldoni's team was trying to frame her as unstable or guilty in the court of public opinion long before a judge or jury had a chance to hear the facts. Another serious point raised by Blake Lively's lawyers involved the appearance of confidential transcript details in major media outlets days before any official record was filed. Journalists were already referencing specific quotes and moments from the deposition, something that should have been impossible unless someone with inside access had leaked them. The transcript in question was not even finalized when reporters began quoting from it, which raised alarms for legal professionals watching the case unfold. If the draft had been shared without court approval, it would represent a breach of legal ethics and could result in sanctions for those involved. This prompted Blake Lively's legal team to file a request asking the court to strike the draft transcript from the public record altogether and to consider disciplinary action against those who may have shared it. They accused Justin Baldoni's legal representative of being directly responsible for the breach and said that this type of conduct undermined the very purpose of a deposition, which is to gather facts in a controlled, respectful environment. As these legal filings made their way into public view, the response from fans and followers on social media exploded. Hashtags began trending with people choosing sides, some expressing sympathy for Blake Lively, while others questioned the timing and motives of the allegations against Baldoni. Influencers began creating content breaking down the legal filings and sharing their opinions on whether or not this was a case of media manipulation or simply the natural outcome of a high-profile celebrity trial. On platforms like TikTok, short clips analyzing the courtroom drama racked up millions of views as people debated everything from legal ethics to fashion choices during the deposition. Meanwhile, legal experts appeared on news panels discussing the seriousness of the accusations. Some said that orchestrating a media spectacle could indeed be grounds for disciplinary action, especially if it violated court orders. Others pointed out that the line between public relations and legal strategy is often blurry in celebrity cases, making it difficult to prove intent. Despite the uncertainty, one thing became clear: the media frenzy surrounding the deposition had taken on a life of its own and was now influencing how the entire trial was being viewed. Not only were legal decisions being debated online, but the personal reputations of both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were being shaped by headlines rather than evidence. Blake Lively's lawyers continued to argue that the leaks had one purpose: to intimidate her, embarrass her, and weaken her position in the trial. They said the timing of the stories, the specific nature of the information, and the way it was framed all pointed to a carefully coordinated effort to control the narrative. They were not just defending their client in court, they were fighting to protect her from what they called trial by media, a dangerous form of justice that operates outside the legal system and thrives on perception rather than truth. We will examine how Justin Baldoni's team has responded to these accusations and whether they accept any responsibility for the media spectacle that has developed around the case. The war of words is heating up, and the consequences could reach far beyond a courtroom as Blake Lively's legal team continued to push forward with accusations of media manipulation and intentional leaks. The world waited to see how Justin Baldoni and his team would respond. Would they deny the claims, remain silent, or shift the conversation entirely? The answer came in the form of a public statement and court documents that appeared to reject the idea that Baldoni or his legal team had any involvement in orchestrating a media spectacle. Instead, they positioned themselves as the ones caught in the storm just as much as Blake Lively. According to their filings, they had no control over what the media published and said that much of the attention surrounding the deposition was due to public curiosity and the high-profile nature of the case itself. Justin Baldoni did not make any personal comments to the press about the accusations, but his legal representatives insisted that any leaks were coincidental or came from sources outside of their control. They emphasized that Baldoni had followed every legal procedure and appeared at the deposition out of respect for the process despite what they described as a hostile and biased public environment. They also pointed to previous statements made by Blake Lively's team which requested strict protective orders and limited press involvement as evidence that they too are concerned about media interference, but that concern should not be twisted into a weapon against their client. They claimed that their attendance at the deposition was legal, that their presence was non-confrontational, and that they had not invited or encouraged any media to cover the event. This response triggered yet another wave of reaction from the public. Legal commentators quickly jumped into the conversation, with some agreeing that it would be difficult to prove deliberate leaks, while others argued that repeated patterns of leaked information could indicate an intentional strategy, even if it was not directly traceable to Baldoni or his lawyers. Fans of both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni continued to clash online, with some calling for more transparency in celebrity legal battles, while others expressed concern that the real issues were being lost in the noise. The narrative was no longer just about the original allegations of harassment. It was now about the credibility of both sides, the ethics of their legal teams, and the power of media in shaping public opinion. Social media influencers continued to dissect every new development, creating viral threads, videos, and commentary analyzing who stood to gain the most from the ongoing media attention. Some creators claimed to have insider sources, others offered dramatic reenactments of the deposition scenes, and some focused on how the story reflected larger themes of power, control, and accountability in the entertainment industry. The digital world amplified the situation to a level that even experienced legal experts found overwhelming. Hashtags like Team Blake and Team Justin appeared across platforms, turning the case into a kind of reality show, with viewers choosing sides, debating motives, and speculating on future outcomes. Justin Baldoni's legal team seemed aware of this shift and began adjusting their tone in public statements. They emphasized the need for dignity, respect, and patience, asking the media and fans to allow the legal process to play out without interference. They denied any involvement in turning the deposition into a media event and insisted they had no reason to manipulate the situation, as their client had nothing to hide. Despite these claims, Blake Lively's legal team remained firm. They released another set of statements reiterating that the pattern of leaks could not be explained away by coincidence. They reminded the court and the public that multiple protective orders had been in place, and that violating those orders was not just unethical, it was potentially illegal. They also challenged Baldoni's legal team to take responsibility and to cooperate with any investigation into how the information was leaked, urging the court to look at email records, communication logs, and internal correspondence that might reveal the source. Meanwhile, the judge overseeing the case issued a warning to both parties, cautioning against using the media as a tool and reminding them that any attempts to sway public opinion could lead to consequences within the courtroom. The judge also considered whether further restrictions were needed to preserve the integrity of the case, including limits on who could attend future depositions and how information could be shared with the public. This video is ongoing legal saga shows how difficult it can be to separate truth from perception when media plays such a large role in a public trial.